Hey everybody, it's Jackie. How's it going? If you're new to me, it's the first time you're seeing my face. Hello, what's up? My name's Jackie. I sit on my floor and I talk about books. So I hope that's why you're here, because that's what's gonna be happening today. If you're not new to me, thank you for always tuning in, the continued support. I really do appreciate it. So today for you, I have my 6th installment to my Birthstone recommendation series. This is all on the Birthstone for the month of June. And yes, it is coming to you late and not in the month of June. I do apologize to all my June birthday subscribers. You guys are awesome. Please don't think I forgot about you. It's just, you know how it goes. You know how it goes, guys, all right? You know how it goes. But if you are interested in finding out any recommendations based off of gemstones, particularly the Birthstone of June, which is the pearl, well, grab yourself a drink, have yourself a seat, and let's get talking some books. Okay, so my June babies. Yes, okay. So this is gonna be broken down just like all my other previous installments to this series, which are listed in this playlist right here in the corner. That's where you'll find January through May, which are all the ones that are currently out right now. So I do recommend go checking those out. There's some great recommendations in there. And I think I've got some good ones for you guys for this one just as much. Pearl was a little bit harder for me this go around. I had to do some digging. I had to do some serious digging for pearls. But I mean, that's how we find pearls, but we'll get into that. So as we always start off with, a little bit about the pearl. June has 3 birthstones, pearl, alexandrite, and moonstone. So to represent the fact that June actually has 3 birthstones, but pearl is the one that we're gonna be focusing on today, this bad boy right here, I wanted to do something, at least a recommendation based off of this fact that there was 3 of them. And I tried really fucking hard. But then I looked on my shelf and I found a book that reminded me of the Moonstone, which we're not going to be talking about, but it is also a very pearlescent looking book. So it kind of works. And so my first recommendation for the month of June and the Birthstone of Pearl is The Luminaries by Eleanor Canton. I read this book years ago and I used to have a full book review for it on my channel, but I accidentally deleted it. So I don't have it. And so maybe I might have to reread it one day and get you another book review, because this thing is stunning. This is a debut novel by Eleanor Canton and it won the Man Booker Award in 2013. So already highly recommended there. This starts off in 1866 in New Zealand, where we follow Walter Moody. Walter Moody encounters a group of 12 individuals that are discussing some nefarious things. We have a wealthy man who has vanished, a prostitute has tried to end her life, an enormous fortune that has been discovered in the home of a luckless drunk. Through a series of twists and turns that will drive you fucking crazy and make you want to howl at the moon, you figure out who did it. This is like a Clue game on fucking steroids. And one more other really cool fact about this book. So when Eleanor Canton wrote this book, she has an actual mechanic in this book that she used to design the layout of this book. So, and the dust jacket is on, it's on upside down. The book is upside down. Yes. So when you read this book, your first chapter, or part 1, has these really unique circle elements here. Those are lunar charts, because this book follows the lunar cycle. So the first chapter is incredibly long, like a full moon, and then they progressively get shorter and shorter and shorter following the phases of the moon. So if you really want to get really fun, you can follow the moon phases while you're reading this book, and it's really quite fun to do. I did not do that the first time I read this book, but I told myself if I ever did it again, that's how I would do it. And basically each night you read that phase of the moon till you find out who did it. But this is literally a Clue on steroids. So not only are you trying to figure out the room and the weapon and who, but you're trying to find out who in what room with what weapon did what event at what time, and then figure out how they tied in to the other person in what room, what weapon, what date and time. It's insane, but it is a really, really good time. So I highly recommend this one. I gave this 5 stars when I read it, and definitely something I should probably pick up again, because yeah, I feel like this is awesome. And it's set in New Zealand if you're looking for books set in New Zealand. All right, so when it comes to the name of the pearl, this was the hardest recommendation that I had. Hardest. because the name of the pearl comes from the old French word pearl, perle, however you actually say it. And that comes from the Latin perna, which means leg, referencing the leg of a mutton shape of opening of a mollusk, where you can have one of the areas where you can find pearls. So when a mollusk have opening, it kind of looks like the leg of a sheep, which is what mutton is. So I didn't have any books about sheep, and I didn't have any books about mollusks. And swear to God, every time I thought of pearl, all I could think of was Alice in Wonderland and the guy coming out of the sea and building the shop and everything. That's all I kept thinking about. I'm like, I got nothing. And I didn't want to do Alice in Wonderland. But then my daughter got assigned her summer reading as she's entering freshman year in high school, and her high school requires summer reading. And the book they were assigned, oh my God, here you go. John Steinbeck's The Pearl. Ding, ding, ding. Yeah, so for this recommendation for June, I am definitely picking John Steinbeck's The Pearl. John Steinbeck's The Pearl is about Kino, a poor diver who is collecting pearls to help sustain his family, but they are very, very poor. And one day he goes in and comes out with this massive pearl that's almost as perfect as the moon. And after he's brought this pearl out, we learn all of these different things about greed, dark depths of evil, luminous possibilities of love, just to quote what Goodreads has on it. I read this book a long, long, long time ago. I will admit that I am not the biggest John Steinbeck fan. I don't really care a lot for his writing. I had to read Mice of Men 4 times, every single time it was assigned to me, and I never really cared for it. But out of Mice of Men and The Pearl, this was more appealing to me. It is not for everybody, but it is definitely a classic for a reason, and it does have a good moral. It's also based off of a Mexican folktale. So if you're looking for retellings of classic folktales from other countries, here you go. But John Steinbeck's The Pearl. I feel very, very old that my daughter is reading this book. I don't know how you guys feel about that, but I'm just like, oh, I had to read that in high school where you're reading for the first time. That's awesome. Which brings us to the color. So when you look at pearls can have a spectrum of neutrals ranging from creamy white all the way to black, aka the black pearl. Yes. And inside this range, you also have hues of pink, yellow, brown, green, purple, blue, and silver. So depending on the angle and the light, the way it's hitting the luminous glow of a pearl, you have a plethora of colors to choose from. High quality pearls, however, have a luster that makes them appear almost creamy and white in color, and a very iridescent sheen. So a very shiny and very appealing kind of stone. So when I was trying to find a book that fit this, there was only one book on my shelf that fit. And then when I went to go grab the first installment of that series, I realized I didn't have the first installment. So I'm gonna put a graphic up here and hopefully it will do it justice. But this is City of Bones by Cassandra Clare. This is the first installment to the Mortal Instruments series where we follow Clary Frey and, what's his name? Jace. Yes. Clary encounters a murder, and the murder is committed by 3 teenagers that are tattooed in very odd shapes and swirls. And as she delves further deeper, she encounters these teenagers again and finds out they are shadow hunters. But yet she has the sight, and she is what they call a mundane. So she shouldn't be able to see shadow hunters that live between the worlds. And through a series of events, Clary is pulled in, and we encounter Jace and Clary developing a nice teen angsty romance with a lot of twists and turns. This is a 6-book series that has spanned a huge world for Cassandra Clare. It is a good time. I had a really good time reading the first one. I have not completed the series. I have read to book 3. But I did have a very good time with the first one. This one was also turned into a feature film that didn't do too hot, and then they turned it into a television show, which I guess is doing quite well. I've never seen the show, but I did see the movie because Jonathan Rhys Meyers played Valentine, who, by the way, is awesome. Love that villain. Love him. Just saying. He's dope. If you are looking for some classic YA angst and a lot of sexual tension built up with not a lot of follow through just because you're in the mood to tease yourself, here you go. I had a good time with it. I do recommend it. I believe I gave it, when I first read it, 3.5 stars, and then I read it a second time and gave it 4 stars. The next recommendation I have is based off of the location of a pearl and where you can find them. Pearls are the only gem that you can find within a living creature. Yes, only one. Naturally, they are occurring pearls are created by saltwater and freshwater mollusks. Example, oysters, clams, mussels, and abalone. So, trying to find a recommendation based off of something that's created within a living creature. I mean, I could go a whole different ways. I could have done a pregnancy trope. I could have done animals. I could have done anything, but I wanted to go back to the basics. Something being created, something living. Living things are embodied by chemistry. And when I thought that way, I was like, oh, chemistry is the building blocks of life. Lessons in Chemistry by Bonnie Garmis. This was a 5-star read for me. I fucking love this book. This follows Elizabeth Zott, who is a chemist in the 1960s, and she falls in love with a brilliant Nobel Prize winning man named Kelvin Evans. But just like chemistry and just like life, it's unexpected. Unexpected things happen. You can do all the calculations, you can do all your science right, but if one thing might be off, temperature, anything, strange things can happen. And we find our heroine as a single mother trying to make her way in a male-dominated field. And through this process, she becomes a spokesman of a cooking show, but she uses her cooking show as a platform to basically revolutionize women and start fueling a change and getting women out into the workforce. And people are like, no, not happening. Elizabeth Zott is definitely a kick-ass person to read about. This story was great. It will trigger you if you grew up in that, it is historical fiction, so it does use historical stereotypes about females, historical views on females and where they belong in society. So as a female, as a women's historian, yes, this book did piss me off, but the way Garmin handles all of these triggers for some people, she handles it very, very well. I had a great time with this book. I highly recommend this one. This thing was 5 stars. It had me laughing, it had me pissed off, it had me crying, and I learned a few things. So definitely a good time. Highly recommend it. And I really am looking forward to picking up some more of Bonnie Garmis's work because this was so much fun. The next book I have is based off how a pearl is created. So, like I said, pearls are the only gemstone that are created within a living creature. But in that living creature, there's some special stuff that happens. A pearl will form when an irritant gets into a mollusk, clam, oyster, whatever the creature is. So not all oysters, not all clams are going to have pearls in them. It's only the ones that get irritants in them. And in response, we'll use a mollusk, for example. The mollusk will begin to coat the irritant with a nacre. I think that's how you pronounce it. It's a shiny substance that's found on the interior side of the shell. And this nacre is created with a mineral argonite and an organic binder called conchylene. I am pretty sure I said that wrong. It's right here. Yeah, go for it. That element is what gives the pearl its shiny, pearlescent glow that pearls are known for, that luster that we all look for. Natural pearls found in the wild can be various shapes. It's rare to find one that's so perfectly smooth and round like you see in jewelry. A lot of times you'll see them as very round stones. It's very, very difficult to find those because it is formed within a living creature that moves and evolves and changes. So the stone itself will also slightly be deformed. Because of this one racked my brain to try to find a recommendation for this. And then I read a book that I did a full book review on, and it will be linked here in the corner so you can go check it out. I did a full book review on Love Deleted by Paul Indigo. Love Deleted's premise is following Cooper and Jethro. Cooper walks into a life-shattering scene, something she never thought she'd see, and she makes a rash decision with what she believes will be a quick fix to this problem. And it turns out that it starts this chain reaction of devastation in her life that really tests the bounds of people. You see, Cooper finds a way to delete memories, especially the ones of her husband, Jethro. She deletes him, not the person, but the emotional attachment to him. So I picked this for this because an irritant caused Cooper to coat herself and protect herself by eradicating something. It's kind of a stretch, I know. But I also really fucking love this book. This book was fantastic. Again, full book review. If you like the idea of trying to, what would possibly happen if you deleted your past memories and you deleted your past loves and how that would affect you, this thing is a beautiful walk into that line of thought. It made me think about my past relationships and what I would have done being 21 and, you know, not having the same mental faculties I have now and just deleting my past. What would that make me now? It's a fascinating representation. I had a really good time with it. Go check out that full book review. This one is definitely a fun one, and it definitely makes you think, for sure. Some myth and folklore about the pearl. So one thing that's very common with belief in the pearl is that they symbolize modesty and purity. So there was only one book I could recommend for this, and I've recommended it multiple times because I love this book, and that is Lori Wick's Where the Wild Rose Blooms. We follow Jackie and Clayton. Jackie is the second oldest of 5 daughters, and Clayton is a young man wanting to be a teacher. They form a little small romance, but Jackie's not the easiest person to get along with, and it takes Clayton a long time to kind of break down that hard shell that she has. And eventually, she starts to open up and they start to develop this little romance that is beautiful and stunning. And we have a very few cute, intimate kiss scenes. And then an event happens that shatters Jackie, physically changes her. And she has to relearn how to exist in the world that she's at. And at this point, she has completely shunned Clayton away. And Clayton fights tooth and nail to get her back, to try to remind her of who she was before the accident. I cried reading this book. I cried reading it the second time I read this book. This book is 5 stars. Both times I've read it, I had a great fucking time with this. This is the first installment to the Rocky Mountain Memories series. It is Christian fiction, so very, very PG if you're looking for something with no smut, just some nice, pure romance. So very, very pure. But I love this book. It is such a good time. The next book I have to recommend is based off of the phrase pearls of wisdom. I'm sure a lot of you have heard this, and that is often used to describe wise words or a statement that can be found humorous. I don't have a lot of books that could fit this except one. And this was a gift to me by a friend, and it is The Art of Worldly Wisdom by Baltasar Gracian. A friend of mine gave me this book because it guided him through some hard times, and it helps him when he needs just that guide. And we all have those quotes that are our favorite quotes that just make us think and teach us things in just the briefest statements. And that is all this book is literally a list of quotes, such as, "To be flawless, this is the requisite for perfection, yet few live without some weaknesses, either the spirit or the flesh. They are tormented by them when they could so easily overcome them. The critical judgment of another is always offended when some slight defect defaces a heavenly set of gifts, for a single cloud is enough to obscure the sun. Such are the shadows upon a reputation, which malice is ever quick to discover, but is slow to forget. The greatest of achievements would be to transform these flaws into adornments, but such trick did Caesar know how to cover his inborn ugliness with laurels." Every quote in here can give you some kind of kernel of wisdom if you need it, or I should say pearl of wisdom. So, a little fun one just to keep in your collection for those random times where you just need some little pick-me-up, or just to help clarify something, some overarching concept. There's a lot of really good ones in here. I had a good time reading this. It's not something you're gonna sit down and read cover to cover unless you want to. But it's definitely one that you might want to annotate and be like, that's one I want to remember, or that's something I want to get tattooed on me. Kernels of wisdom. There you go. The next one I have is based off of this myth and folklore. Sorry, my battery beeped at me. So pearls were once used in burials for burial rites, and they were placed in the mouths of the deceased to assist them through their journeys beyond, and would also use to decorate burial gifts and clothes. So when I found out that they were placed in the mouths of people to carry on their journey, I immediately went to one person and one person only. And I think if you know me, you know where I'm going. Game of Fate by Scarlett St. Clair. This is Hades' perspective of A Touch of Darkness, the first installment to the Touch of Darkness series. This is Hades' perspective of this book, and Hades is, as you know, god of the underworld, and he used to have coins placed on the eyes of the dead people to pay carry-on to carry them into his realm. So I thought it only fitting that the god of the underworld would make an appearance in June, because why? He fits everywhere. Okay, he does. I love this book. I gave it 5 stars. I gave Touch of Darkness, which is Persephone's version of this book, 5 stars. And this is a Hades and Persephone retelling with a lot of spice. Holy shit, the spice. Oh my God. But in this book, we get to see Hades as Hades. We see him snarky, we see him mean, we see him hot, we see him spicy, and we see him, well, we see a lot of him. And I enjoyed every single second of it. I definitely recommend this one. I had a great time with this, and I recommend Touch of Darkness as well. Reading these side by side is a great experience. It's super, super fun. The last myth of folklore that I have for the pearl is, for thousands of years, pearls have been associated with brides. This is very, very common. You see a lot of brides wearing pearls on wedding dresses. And it was thought that it would keep a new bride from crying on her big day if she wore pearls. Not me. I wore pearls on my wedding day and I cried like a baby. I cried like a baby. Oh my God. And I'm not a pretty crier, guys. Not. I'm very bad crying. I am a very ugly crier. So when I got this, there was only one book I could pick for this, and this is literally my favorite book of all time, and that is Diana Gabaldon's Outlander. And the main reason why is because Jamie gives a string of pearls that belong to his mother to Claire on their wedding day, and it's fucking adorable. And I just love everything about this book. Their romance is so perfect. We follow Claire Randall, who has literally fallen back into time and met Jamie Fraser, who was during the Scottish Rebellion in 1743. And he marries Claire to keep her out of hands of the British, kind of to protect her. But Jamie is king among men, and he is perfect. And he gave her a strand of pearls on their wedding day, along with some other things. And I'm talking about the necklace strand of pearls. Get your hands in the gutter, guys, okay? I know which ones I'm talking to. You know. I know it. Because I'm that bitch too. So, but I highly recommend this one. This was a great time. This is literally my favorite book of all time. I've reread it multiple times, and it comes with a fantastic series to go along with it, turned into a major television series starring Sam Heughan as Jamie Fraser. Epic. So good. If you have not read this book, go fucking pick it up. I talk about it all the fucking time. It's literally my favorite book. It's got everything. Everything. And Jamie fucking Fraser. Thank you. Now for some uses of the pearl. So the pearl is a gem that's given on the 3rd and 13th wedding anniversary. And so I decided to do what I did for my last birthstone recommendation, and when it was a stone given on a anniversary, I went back into the recesses of my old videos and I picked out a video. I picked out the 3rd video that I ever put up here, even back the 3rd video back in 2016 when I originally started this channel, and that was my BookTube newbie tag. And I'm going to recommend some books off of that. I only referenced 3 sets of books in that video, believe it or not. So here they are. My first recommendation is the Nancy Drew series. This was a staple for me as a child, okay? Staple. We follow Nancy Drew. She's a very inquisitive young girl who solves mysteries. And there is a plethora of these, but one in particular that always sticks out in my mind was my favorite was Clue of the Broken Locket, right here. Number 11. I fucking adored this one. I reread this one so many freaking times. It is my favorite of this whole series. The next series that I recommend in that video was the Dear America series. Looks like this. This is a series of diaries written by girls during pivotal moments of history as almost like a first-person representation. But these girls were young girls, middle grade age girls. So they were girls that were my age going through these events, and it made history come alive for me. These were fantastic. I mean, these really cemented and started my love of history for sure. And one of my favorites was The Voyage of the Great Titanic. This is a young girl who sailed across on the Titanic. And I remember just eating this up because this one came out right when Titanic came out. And yeah, I became obsessed. Obsessed with Titanic history, lore, all of that stuff. I became kind of crazy, and it started my love affair with Leonardo DiCaprio. Let's just be honest, okay? And the last series I recommend in that video is the series that really actually makes me up and kind of explains a lot of who I am today and why I'm morbid and creepy and like all the dark twisty stuff. Goosebumps. Yes, I was a Goosebumps girl. R.L. Stein's Goosebumps. These things, they have a special place in my heart, and they are never fucking going anywhere. These things are fantastic. And one of my favorite was The Curse of the Mummy's Tomb. This is when I started becoming obsessed with Egyptian lore and hieroglyphics and studies. I wanted to be an Egyptologist when I was younger. I thought that would be the coolest job in the world. And then I realized that I suck with foreign languages and reading hieroglyphs was really fucking hard. But Egypt is a bucket list place for me one of these days. I will get there. I will get there one of these days. Yeah. But Goosebumps series. If you are looking for something middle grade and spooky and creepy and just kind of reminiscent of childhood in the early 90s, here you go. And now time for my author spotlight. Every Birthstone recommendation video at the very end, I spotlight an author that was actually born in that month. And this month is Colleen McCullough, born on June 1st, 1937, and she is the author of The Thornbirds, one of my favorite books of all time. I read this back in the 8th grade, and I just absolutely fell in love with it. This thing taught me so much about myself and so much of what I'm looking for in books. We follow the Cleary family spanning 3 generations and showing the poverty and struggles. And we particularly follow the daughter, Maggie, and how she grows up alongside father, Ralph D. Percasset, who develops an attachment to her at a very young age, and then things develop as she gets older. Yeah, I was into taboo stuff in the 8th grade too, so I've always been that girl. This thing taught me to cry and not really give a shit if people knew. This thing taught me that I loved multiple POVs. This thing taught me that I love family spanning genres, or generational type stories. This thing is such a huge part to my heart, holds a huge place in my heart. And it was turned into a mini series that I have yet to watch because I do not want to ruin the effect of this book. I've never reread this book because I do not want to taint the memory that I have with it. It's that special and that important to me. So I definitely, when I found out that Colleen McCullough was born in June, I was like, there's my author. Here we go. Author spotlight. If you've not read this book, 5 stars. You need to go read it. This thing is phenomenal. It will make you fall in love. It will make you cry. It will break your heart. It will build you up. It will intimidate you a little bit. And it might even tease you a little bit too. So those are my recommendations for my June birthday. So if you have a June birthday, I apologize that it's coming to you guys so late, but I hope you will enjoy some of these recommendations and you will pick them up, and let me know if you do. And I will see you guys with my July TBR, my July Birthstone recommendations, because, well, Ruby's my second favorite stone. So I'll see you there. Bye, guys.